high school, I had to make a big decision, my first real adult decision. That was, should I take French or should I take Spanish? Now, at the time, Spanish wasn't the kind of second language that it was in the United States today, so I picked French. I'd like to say that I picked French because I knew that in the future, a lot of the saints that I would like Saint Bernadette Soubirous and Saint Therese of Liseux and Saint John Vianney, are French, but I didn't. I picked French because, frankly, I saw the textbook and it was a lot skinnier and it looked a lot easier than the Spanish textbook. I took French for about 6 or 7 years, and even in college. And after college, I decided it was time to visit France. So I went with some friends, and we traveled all over the place. And one day we were in Paris, and we saw a big bronze statue of Saint Joan of Arc. And the friend I was traveling with, who was not Catholic, turned to me and said, "Well, tell me the story about Joan of Arc." And I looked at her dumbfounded. I had no idea what to tell her about Joan of Arc. When I got back to the United States, I started on a kind of reading tour about Joan of Arc, and since then she's become one of my favorite saints. I like to tell people that Joan of Arc is one of those saints that if she came back today, unlike, say, Francis of Assisi or Therese of Liseux or someone like Mother Teresa, people would probably think she wasn't just holy, she was crazy. Because her story is really unusual, and that's saying a lot in the lives of the saints. Joan of Arc was active in the 15th century when she was about 14 years old as a young girl in her garden behind her parents' house. She heard the voices of not one, but 3 saints, Saint Margaret, Saint Catherine, and Saint Michael, who told her to free France from the domination of the English. At the time, France was really laboring under English rule, at least parts of France. So Joan, I think it's important to see, was trying to help people become less oppressed. So this 14-year-old girl, on the basis of these voices, traveled to visit the prince, the Dauphin, as he's called, Charles VII, goes to his court, picks him out of a huge crowd, not knowing who he is, and tells him a secret so mysterious and still secret that convinces Charles that she is the person to lead France out of the domination of the English. So Joan does that. She leads the army kicks out the English, and she's proclaimed a heroine, and Charles is crowned king. Unfortunately, things change and the wind changes for Joan. Charles gets a little tired of her and basically starts to feel a little bit of pressure from the all-male court at the time. So Joan is handed over to the English, who try her and burn her. She's burned at the stake, and her last words are, "Jesus, Jesus." Her heart is taken out from the ashes and thrown into the Seine River. One of my favorite parts of the Joan of Arc story is the story of her trial. Now, Joan, after being captured by the English, is put on a sort of into a kangaroo court, a sort of fake trial, where she's brought in front of a lot of English church officials who believe that she's a witch because of her reliance on voices. And Joan, even at 14, 15, having been thrown into jail and suffered innumerable physical hardships, is able to keep her wits about her and actually best her judges. There's a very famous question where someone says to her, "Joan, are you in a state of grace?" Now, it's kind of a trick question, because if she says she isn't in a state of grace, then people will say, well, obviously you're in league with the devil. If she says she is in a state of grace, then people will say you're proud, and you're not fit to be a good Christian. So what does Joan say? She says, this 14-year-old girl who's been under these horrible persecutions and in jail, she has the wits about her to say, "If I am in a state of grace, may God keep me there. If I'm not in a state of grace, may God put me there." And the trial transcripts say that a huge silence descended over all of the people who were listening. So what does Joan have to say to us? What does this sort of crazy project that she embarked on have to say to us today? Well, basically, I think Joan tells us that no matter how crazy things seem, if it's coming from God and if you really believe that this is where God is calling you, it's important to follow through. Joan shows us the value of faith in our lives. Joan shows us that no matter how many people might say you're nuts for doing something like this, you're nuts for trying to be a good Christian or a good Catholic, keep on doing it. Strange as she might seem to us, I think really still has a very strong message, and that message, I think, can be boiled down into one word, and that one word is trust.